Sejam muito bem-vindos a mais um webinar no formato de workshop realizado pela GAVB. Hoje nós vamos estar falando sobre um assunto muito interessante, muito bacana, que é a virtualização de dados. Vamos focar na parte de arquitetura de dados com o Data Virtualization. Vamos estar falando sobre a solução da DENODO. Temos também a equipe da DENODO no workshop, que estará apresentando para vocês um pouco da solução e também uma demo prática, então realmente vai ser bacana. Eu sou o Guilherme Cruz, diretor de operações da GAVB. Nos próximos minutos vou estar apresentando para vocês uma breve introdução sobre o Data Virtualization e na sequência nós já passamos para a equipe da DENODO dar seguimento. Tá bom? Então vamos lá, pessoal, falando rapidamente, tá, sobre alguns tópicos que nós vamos comentar nos próximos minutos. Então nós temos os fundamentos de Big Data, que é importante nós comentarmos rapidamente para podermos abordar a questão de virtualização de dados. Nos fundamentos de Big Data, estaremos falando sobre conceitos, evolução e comparação entre diferentes arquiteturas de dados. No segundo tópico, falaremos rapidamente sobre a jornada de Data Analytics, uma visão geral sobre a jornada de Data Analytics dentro das organizações. E, por fim, falarei muito brevemente sobre a virtualização de dados, a correlação do aumento do volume das origens de dados com a necessidade da virtualização. E, na sequência, passaremos para a apresentação da DENODO. Bom, pessoal, quando falamos sobre fundamentos de Big Data, inicialmente, em seu surgimento, o Big Data pode ser definido, né, por três vezes, digamos assim, o conceito de Big Data é definido por três vezes. Nós falávamos de dados de alto volume, alta velocidade e alta variedade, que exigiram essas formas inovadoras e econômicas para fazer processamento de informações, permitindo visão, tomada de decisões e também automação e transformação desses processos. Então, em resumo, quando falávamos de Big Data, falávamos dos três vezes: volume, velocidade e variedade. Com a evolução do Big Data nos últimos anos, nós passamos para o conceito de 7 Vs. Então, além dos três primeiros, volume, velocidade e variedade, começamos a falar sobre variabilidade, veracidade, visualização e, principalmente, esse último, falarmos de valor. Como extrair valor, como fazer com que o Big Data gere valor para a organização. Então, é interessante a gente comentar um pouquinho sobre as estruturas de dados, tá? Ou seja, quando falamos em estruturas de dados, normalmente falávamos de Data Warehouse, e mais recentemente começamos a falar de Data Lakes. Então, abordando rapidamente o que precisamos saber sobre esses dois assuntos. Quais as diferenças entre o Data Warehouse e o Data Lake, quais os papéis e pontos fortes de cada um, em termos de capacidade e processamento, por que e como devemos utilizá-los em conjunto, para que a gente possa entender o conceito também de virtualização de dados. Então, quando nós falamos de Data Warehouse, um conceito bastante conhecido para a maioria, um conceito que já existe há cerca de 2 décadas, falamos basicamente de dados tratados e organizados, ou seja, através do Data Warehouse, estatísticas comprovam que é possível fornecer 80% das análises utilizando os mesmos 20% de dados disponíveis da organização, ou seja, 80% do que a organização precisa encontrar de informação está disponível em 20% dos dados. Tá? O Data Warehouse ele é otimizado para tarefas repetitivas e o Data Warehouse, conforme a evolução ao longo do tempo, também passou a suportar centenas de usuários corporativos consumindo os dados dessas origens. Tá? Então, basicamente, o Data Warehouse responde perguntas corporativas através de uma perspectiva histórica. Quando nós falamos da evolução da estrutura de dados, é muito comum se ouvir falar em Data Lake, um assunto também bastante popular. Então, com a evolução das plataformas em nuvem, das tecnologias de armazenamento, surge o conceito de Data Lake dentro do ecossistema já de Big Data. Então, quando nós falamos em Data Lake, lago de dados, basicamente, uma plataforma, uma arquitetura de armazenamento massivo de dados em um único repositório, ou seja, diferentes origens, diferentes tipos de dados num único repositório para consumo, processamento e análise né, por diversos grupos de usuários e diferentes sistemas. Então, quando falamos de data lakes e a parte de data analytics, basicamente estamos falando de descoberta de informações, né, ou seja, armazenamento de dados brutos para exploração e análise, muitas vezes dados não estruturados e de diversas fontes. E o data lake, diferentemente do data warehouse, ele não é para todos os usuários e nem para todos os casos de uso. Tá? Basicamente, o data lake serve para como podemos descobrir o que não sabemos, né? Ao contrário do data warehouse, que nós usamos uma perspectiva histórica para encontrar respostas que nós já temos definidas. Então, quando nós falamos na relação, né, de data lake, data warehouse e por que utilizar ambos em conjunto, temos esse gráfico aqui que demonstra na linha no eixo X a parte de dados, no eixo Y a parte de questionamentos. Então, quando nós falamos em ter dados conhecidos e questionamentos conhecidos, o data warehouse tradicional atende muito bem. Quando nós falamos em dados desconhecidos ou não estruturados e questionamentos que eu ainda não sei, nós falamos em data lake. Ou seja, o data warehouse é excelente em questões quando os dados são conhecidos, e o papel do data lake é um pouco diferente, é mais focado nas incógnitas, naquilo que eu ainda não sei. Então, pessoal, fica uma pergunta aqui, né? Como armazenar, encontrar, extrair valor, né, de todas essas diferentes origens de dados, estruturas de dados e tipos de dados dentro de uma organização? Então, surge um conceito bastante bacana aqui, que é de Logical Data Warehouse, ou seja, data warehouses lógicos. Com isso, nós começamos a falar de virtualização de dados. Então, como que funciona, basicamente, pessoal, o fluxo da informação, né, dentro de uma plataforma de Data Analytics? Nós temos a parte de ingestão de dados, os processos que vão fazer a ingestão, né, e a carga desses dados. Nós temos uma estrutura de armazenamento, né, essa estrutura ela pode ser uma estrutura de data warehouse, uma estrutura de data lake. Nós temos uma estrutura de ferramentas e softwares para fazer processamentos e análises. E, por fim, nós temos essas informações geradas ou em dashboards ou em algum tipo de visualização e também informações para serem disponíveis para integração com outros sistemas da organização. Esse é o fluxo padrão da informação Data Analytics. Porém, recentemente, nós temos o conceito da camada de virtualização, ou seja, nós temos mais uma camada acima do armazenamento, acima das estruturas de dados, que é o Data Virtualization, ou seja, a criação, o surgimento de uma camada lógica, tá, para fazer a virtualização de diferentes origens de dados, diferentes estruturas e tipos de dados. Então, o Logical Data Warehouse, conceito de Logical Data Warehouse e de Virtualization, de Data Virtualization, basicamente eles se posicionam, tá, como uma abordagem de dados que busca garantir a competitividade do negócio. Ou seja, resolver basicamente o problema de como eu extraio dados de dentro da minha estrutura de Big Data, de dentro da minha estrutura de Data Lake. Então, quando a gente fala, pessoal, por fim, né, já finalizando, a parte de jornada de transformação analítica, para quem tem nos acompanhado, né, a gente fala muito sobre essa jornada. Então, nós falamos sempre da etapa de fundação, né, uma etapa descritiva, onde eu começo a fazer descoberta de dados, uma etapa já preditiva, onde eu já passo por o que nós chamamos de Advanced Analytics, né, ou seja, já começo a trabalhar com equipes de Data Science, análises estatísticas, modelos preditivos. Vou para uma etapa de prescritivo, né, ou seja, como que eu recomendo decisões com base no que eu estou prevendo, e por fim também temos aí a etapa cognitiva, né, que é a etapa mais avançada da jornada de Data Analytics. O mais interessante é que o Data Virtualization ele passa a ser um pilar fundamental na camada de fundação, né, ou seja, na camada de estruturação de dados. Né. Então, nós tínhamos aqui a parte de ETLs, Data Warehouses, Data Lakes, os pipelines de dados, né, a governança de dados, e nós temos agora, mais recentemente, a virtualização de dados. Então, pessoal, vamos ao que interessa. Tá? Vamos começar a falar sobre o DENODO. Tá? O DENODO, para quem ainda não conhece, foi nomeado recentemente como uma das ferramentas líderes do quadrante mágico do Gartner. Tá? Nós temos hoje com a gente o Ivan e o Evandro, da equipe DENODO. O Evandro é o nosso representante, né, o nosso líder aí a nível Brasil, e nós temos o Ivan, que é um dos principais analistas da DENODO na América Latina. Tá? O Ivan vai estar apresentando um pouquinho agora para vocês a solução. fazendo uma demo, né, passando alguns conceitos e principalmente abordando de forma geral o que é a virtualização de dados e que valores, né, que benefícios pode trazer para as organizações. Tá bom, pessoal? Então, vamos ao que interessa. Vou parar meu compartilhamento para poder passar para o Ivan.
Thank you, Jeremy. Well, boa noite. That's the only thing that I know in Portuguese, so I'm sorry for that. I'm gonna talk about a brief introduction about data virtualization. I mean, you talked about that, but I'm Ivan Lopez. I'm located in Mexico City, and I'm a sales engineer for DENODO. So I want to talk about DENODO, about the company. So we are a company that has been, we've been working in data virtualization for 20 years. So we only have these products, so we are very focused on this technology. We have about 800 customers around the world with different types of industries, which is can be very interesting. So we have customers in the, for instance, in the telecommunications and mining, and you can name it, insurance companies, pharma, etc. So we've been doing this for a long time. Most of the customers are Fortune 500 and global to 2,000 companies. So we have a global presence. We have presence in Brazil, obviously, and around the world, basically. So what are the motivations to implement data virtualization? So we have, with the time, we have new challenges in data management. We have a lot of points, but I'm gonna do a summary of these 3 main points about data management. So we have these new needs about faster and more complex demands for decision making. So what it means? It means that even if you are an IT area or a business area, you have this need to increase the speed and complexity of requirements. So this is a good challenge for both areas. Even if you are in the IT area or in the business area, you have this need, and it's very important to accomplish this type of new requirements. Another point is the new regulations and governance and data security. We know that with the time, we have this need of, for instance, having more a secure environment in talking about data. We know that data is a new oil right now, and if you have the information that you need, you have the power to make new decisions or to implement new requirements. So this is something important in when we talk about regulations and governance and data security. Also, we have new complexity in the infrastructure, because when we work in a company, we're having more and more software and hardware, and sometimes it's difficult to manage. So we have to focus on the IT cost reduction. So how can we achieve this cost reduction? We have different types of things in DENODO that can help you out to take new decisions and to reduce the costs in technology. So probably you are familiar with this diagram, basically we have different types of data sources, and all of them, the way that we access to every single data source is like completely mess. So we, for instance, if this is your layer, your central layer, you have to access in, for instance, in cloud applications, but also you have an ETL that loads a lot of information in for instance, in data warehouses or data marts. And sometimes you access from the source, from the source in the origin, or sometimes you access from the data warehouse or the data lake. So it may be very, very complex, because every time that we implement a new technology, we have a challenge to access to different sources. For instance, now we have sensor information with IoT or enterprise applications like Salesforce, or cloud applications like Amazon or Azure, and files like an Excel. So every new requirement, we have a new layer of complexity. So it may be very, very, very difficult to manage. So also at the same time, we have to implement governance and security at every data source. So sometimes it may be very, very difficult to implement a security layer in every single source. So this is a problem. Probably a lot of companies have this architecture in their companies. So we have something interesting here. Gartner says that about 60% of all organizations will implement data virtualization through 2022. So what it says is that we have a lot of new needs that can be achieved with data virtualization. Instead of implementing new ETLs process or new technologies, new technologies that maybe they will add more complexity to the IT layer or to the IT infrastructure. So also we have this information, and this is from Forbes. And it says that healthcare and different types of companies and industries can save about 300 billion per year by better integrating data. So this is the main focus of data virtualization. Also, we have some information about the increase in data accessibility. So we know one thing for sure. It's one of the things is that data will increase every single time. So this is a fact, and we know that, and also we know that we have to implement security and governance in data virtualization. So I'm going to talk about in a high level view of DENODO. We have this diagram, this image. In few words, we know that data virtualization integrates disparate data sources in real time or near real time to meet demands for analytics and transactional data. So this is the definition of data virtualization. And the way we do it in DENODO is we have three layers. The first one is the source abstraction, which is basically for instance, if you have a database in Oracle, an abstraction may be a table. So if we abstract a table, we can work with these small elements and then combine these elements and transform and add a semantics layer in order to have these combinations and adding business logic. So this is something important. So for instance, if we have different technologies like a web service or a database or for instance, information in Salesforce or something in the cloud, we can combine all this information. It doesn't matter what type of technology we're talking here. So we can combine this information and deliver this data. So we publish the last layer in order to have these combinations and business logic. So what are the 6 main points in data virtualization? We have data abstraction, because we are abstracting the different layers in the data sources. We have zero replications and zero relocation, because for instance, if we compare an ETL versus a data virtualization, when we have a job process in ETL, we are replicating information in data warehouses or in data marts, but here in data virtualization, we don't do that. I mean, we don't have the need to replicate information, because for instance, we implement strategies for performance. So we deliver this information in real time or near real time. That's the difference between a ETL and DENODO. So also we have this capability of self-service. Thanks to the nature of DENODO is very easy to implement. And I'm talking about that even if you are in a IT area or in a business area, once you have the abstraction of your different data sources, you may be able to create a model. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to implement a model. And also, even if you're a business user or an IT user, you can be able to create models with complex business logic. So it would be very easy to implement the self-service. I'm going to say that I've seen in different companies how in a high level of maturity in the companies, they implement the self-service, and even business users, they are able to create a model and deliver the information that they need. Also, if we have a data virtualization layer, we have centralized metadata, security, and governance, which is something very convenient here. Also, we may be able to implement data virtualization in different architectures, even if you are in a hybrid environment or in a cloud or on-premise. So it's very easy to use and implement. So we have a more detailed schema of DENODO, which is basically what we talked about. We have different sources. Maybe you are familiar with SAP or with something in the cloud or different files. And what we do here in DENODO is connect, combine, and consume to deliver this layer in 3 different ways of delivery for information. For instance, we have the data catalog that I'm going to show you how it works. And also we have another way to do it with SQL, like for instance with Power BI or SAP Business One or Tableau, or some data science tools like Jupyter or R, or different programming languages. And also there is another way, which is data as a service. And this, for instance, if we implement a web service with DENODO, we will be able to deliver this information to, for instance, a mobile application or a web portal or different or other applications. So that could be very interesting to implement. So we have many uses here for data virtualization. In these 6 boxes, we have different types to implement a data virtualization. For instance, we have the customer centricity or the customer 360, which, for instance, we may have different sources like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever you want. We integrate this information with our databases. We may have a 360 degrees information about the customers. So we may integrate all this information and have a view, a more interesting view about the different customers. Also, we may be able to implement data governance because we have options for data lineage, or to know what are the different types of sources that we are integrating. So this is another functionality here. And also the famous data services, which is that's very similar to what I said before, that you can deploy a web service that can be useful for other applications, or for a mobile application, or for a web portal. So that's what we call it as a data as a service. Also, we are able to deliver the data that business intelligence or analytics will need. For instance, we are able to integrate all the information that the analytics or business intelligence need to visualize. So that's something interesting here. Also, we're able to access to big data environments like Hadoop, or access to Spark, or some of these different systems. And also, we are using a lot of cloud sources also, or you will be able to create a cloud environment with DENODO. DENODO can live in the cloud, so you can access to the different services that you can implement with DENODO. So we have some use cases. This is about pharma. For instance, Biogen, they were having a lot of issues with the growth of their data. They wanted to automate the generation of daily reports and improve the performance. And they wanted to have a single view of data where they will access to their information. So the solution here is to implement, I mean, we deployed a solution with DENODO, and we centralized this the information that they needed in a single view, where they had all the different sources in one single point. So we have, I guess, yeah, here. This is a high-level diagram of this customer, where, for instance, they have different sources like XLS or CSV or TXT files, PDFs, and web application, and they wanted to access in a single view from a web portal and a mobile application. And also for some business users, they wanted to know the daily sales reports in Excel. So that's very interesting, because they had different sources from different technologies, and we were able to integrate this information in real time deliver everything to these different consumers. So that's a very interesting use case in pharma. Also, one of the most important clients is Visa. This project was in the United States. One of the problems here was that they, in the business area, they were looking for an integration solution to deliver data in an agile way with different data sources. So they had a lot of growing volume in their information. So this was their problem, and the solution was again to implement to deploy the DENODO in this layer to integrate the different information, and also not only integrate but also add a lot of performance. So they reduce the reporting and analytic turnaround time by 90%, and also for instance for making decisions, they were able to take faster decisions even in 10 times faster than they used to do it before. So we have a good return of investment here in Visa. Also in this bank, in Seacoast Bank, they I'm going to show you the diagram. They wanted to do a profiling of the data of the customers, for instance, because they needed to take decisions for instance for loans. So they had to consult different systems here in order to make decisions. For instance, if they wanted to know if a client was able to take a loan in this bank, they needed to check different systems in order to know if they had a job or if they didn't have other loans in other banks. You know, this type of things, they needed to consult different systems. So now with DENODO, they were able to integrate all this information and make decisions faster. So that was one of the solutions for them. We have another use case here about Santander. So they also needed to improve their data delivery. So because it was taking a lot of time. As I said before, we are in all the companies, it's a constant need, because all the time it's growing. I mean, the data is growing. So that's the reason that it's very convenient to implement something like DENODO. So we have some examples here about the return of investment. For instance, in Intel, which is one of the biggest clients in DENODO, the time to develop a project was reduced. Even for instance, they were expecting a 50% of reduction, but they had a 90% of reduction of time to develop, because it's very easy to create a project, and I'm going to show you right now. So we have a lot of points here and savings. And when I say savings, it's about time and also about resources. So I'm gonna do, okay. So we have, as a summary, we are with the data virtualization, we are able to enable business self-service with governance and security, adding this value to metadata. So it's a very, very important part when you are accessing to the information from different data sources. So also about the single views of truth, you know, sometimes people in important meetings from different areas, they have different information. So what we are trying to achieve here with DENODO is to create single views with a single version of truth. So it means that all the people will have the information that they can trust. So that's something very important. Also, we have lower IT costs by decoupling IT from business. So you may be able to have your infrastructure and also another layer, which is DENODO. And for instance, if you want to decouple the different sources, it will be very easy to do it. So you may be able to reduce the cost of data storage, to reduce data replication, because you are not replicating in data warehouses or data marts. Okay. So I'm gonna go to this diagram. Probably you are familiar with some of these logos. In few words, what we are trying to say here is that we have, you may be able to access to different data sources in a single view, which is this one. This is the layer of DENODO. And we will be able to consume this data from Power BI, from Tableau, from ClickView, from something in the cloud, from ServiceNow, from Salesforce. So, so in few words, we're saying that we are able to connect to every single technology here. And also, when you buy a license in DENODO, you don't have to buy connectors or anything like that. Everything is in a single package. And okay. So some of the scenarios when we talk about performance, we know we have to focus on this, because we know that all the data is coming from another place. Is coming from external source, and it needs to travel through the network. So we have to focus in minimizing the network traffic. So we implement different strategies to achieve this reduction of network traffic. We know that data is distributed in multiple systems. We need to integrate everything in a virtual layer. So we have to focus on this performance. So for this demo, we know that well, this is the environment. We have a single view for every single tool. For instance, we have the capability to manage the environment, to, for instance, the design studio, the diagnostic and monitoring tool, and the scheduler. These are some of the components that we have in DENODO. So I'm going to show you the scenario. We have for this demo, we have 3 different sources. One is coming from Oracle, another one is from Impala, and another one is from web service. So I'm gonna show you how we can develop something here. And I log in here. So this is the environment that we have in the design studio. We have different projects here. So the way that you can structure a project is very free. So in this case, we have the sources that we can abstract the different components, like for instance, Hadoop, or different files like an Excel or CSVs, or Kafka, or traditional databases like a DB2 or Oracle or MySQL. So if we open one of these components, we will be able to connect to different data sources. So it's very easy to connect, to create a data source. The only thing that we need to do is only create, to connect through a user or password in this case. And we will be able to create a base view. A base view is an abstraction of a table in this case for Oracle. So once we are able to create this base view, we will be able to create a more complex model. We have something like this. I'm going to show you the different types of operations that we have here. You can do a join or a union of the different data sources, or a minus, or an intersect, or flatten. I mean, it's limitless, the different options that you have here. So once you are creating a model here, and we have the different base views in this side of the menu. For instance, in this case, we have some base views in Oracle. I'm just going to do this example with only a drag and drop. You will be able to integrate a base view or a table, in this case, with a more complex model. For instance, in this case, we have an Impala data source, we have an Oracle table, and we have a service in API. So we are integrating the different data sources from different technologies into a single view. The way we do it is just indicating what are the columns that we want to join between the different data sources. So as you see, it's very easy to implement the different connections among the different data sources. Also, we were able to implement some conditions. For instance, in this case, we have a year condition, or to group some of the columns here. And also in output, you will be able to filter the columns that you want to show to the final user. Also, we have different operations, like for instance, arithmetical operations or logical operations. So I'm gonna show you some of the operations that we have. You can have access to different. For instance, in this case, it's about date functions, or mathematical functions like minimum values or maximum values, or average, or sum, like this one, or some text functions like replace of a string, or adding a different format for some strings or dates. So it may be very interesting here because you can transform your information in this section. So I'm gonna execute this view just to show you how you can see this information. The way you see it is just like a regular table. As you see, we are visualizing this information just as a single table, but it's funny because we have different sources here, but at the end of the day, the way that we deliver this information is in a single table, in a single view, with the information that we need. So in this case, we have this one. So we only have 10 minutes. but I'm gonna show you the three different ways that we have to access to this model. So as we saw before, we have this is the final view of this model, and we can access to this view from Power BI, which is one of the ways that we can do it. We can do it through Tableau, MicroStrategy, Power BI. It's important to know that we have a partnership with these tools, so it will be very transparent to access to our model. So even if you have a Power BI instance, you may be able to see the DENODO connector. For instance, if you type DENODO here, you will find this connector, and that, I mean, the reason is because we have this partnership with Power BI. If we try to connect, the only thing that we need to do is to type the name of the connection. We click on OK, and we open the project here. So I'm gonna do this this view, which is a campaign evolution per country. It's the same thing that we were seeing before. We click on load, and we will be able to see the same information that we have in here in our design studio. We will be able to see it in Power BI. I'm gonna click on some of these fields. As you know, Power BI has this capability to transform some of the information. For instance, in this case, the country for Power BI, Power BI is able to show this map because it's information that it may be familiar for some of the graphics here in Power BI. So if we see the information, it's very transparent because we see the same information that we have in the design studio. And also something that is very interesting for me is that we only see one source. So this is something interesting for business users, because business users, they don't have to add more complex, more complex complexity in their final views. Like, for instance, DENODO can be a black box for business users because they don't need to know what we did in the, for instance, in the model. They don't need to know that, but also, for instance, in Power BI, what they see it's only this one source. So for some business users, this is very, very, very transparent, and they don't add more complexity to their sources. So you can implement a complex logic here, but for the business users, it's only one single source. And they don't have to add more complexity here. So another type of
Hi, Ivan.
Yep.
Let me ask you something. We have a question here in our Q&A. The question is where the functions and joins are processed. Are they processed in memory in the DENODO server?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are processed. Well, it's very interesting because we have different strategies for performance. So in this case, we have something called aggregation pushdown, which tries to push all the processing or the complex processing to the sources. And also, by the way, it returns reduce information of what we have. And also, for instance, if we have to combine data, like I'm going to show you something, this diagram could be very helpful, like this one. So DENODO will try to push all the processing to the sources, like here. But also in some cases, like for instance, if we have a group by, if we have to join different sources, different information from here or from here, what we do is to process this data in memory. But also we have a limit, like for instance, if we are passing more than 2 million rows in memory, we have to push down this data into a swap disk. So we have this combination. In most of the cases, it's using a memory, but when we have more information, over 2 million rows, we are using a swap disk. And everything is in the server of DENODO. Yeah. I'm not sure if it helped. Okay. Okay. Another type of consuming this model is using the web services, which is it's very easy to implement. We have like a wizard where with 2 or 3 clicks you may be able to create this web service, which can be in different ways. It can be a RESTful service or a OData or swap service, which can be consumed by a mobile application or a web portal. And the other thing is with data catalog, and in data catalog, we are able to browse and search the metadata and the data, and also we can search the different views, and also we can make queries, but in a graphical way. So you don't need to do a SQL query or anything like that, because everything is visual. Also, you are able to export to local files and see the lineage of your data. So we have just a couple of minutes, and I'm gonna show you the data catalog here. Okay. So this is the data catalog. And the first thing that we have here is a search box where you can search your data or your metadata. I mean, in this case, the metadata is the different models that we have. If we browse in our models, we will see the same thing that we saw before in the design studio, but the difference here is that you can create reports in a graphical way. For instance, in this case, if I drag and drop the columns that I want to search, you can add filters or order bys. And if you run this report, this is very similar to data visualizator, where you can see this information in a more friendly way. This is more oriented to business users. And also you can export this information to a CSV file, or to a HTML or an Excel or a Tableau. So it's very, very easy to export this information. And remember that this is the information that you have with all your business logic and everything that you need. And also something interesting here is that you can see the lineage of your data. Like for instance, here, if we click on total, we will see the way that it took to show this information, to show the total. So if we click on this node, we will see how it was created. It was created with a zoom of this column of net paid. And if you want to, or if you are curious enough, you can see all the way that it took to show this information. So this is one of the features that I like here in data catalog, because it's very useful and it's very business oriented. So this is, I would say, this is the most important thing in data catalog. And also you will be able to save the different queries. Let's suppose that you have different filters or order wise. If you want to save this special filter or special report, you will be able to save this. You can share this report to different users in your organization. Well, I think I'm done here. Do you have any more questions?
Yes, we have another question. Is the data catalog is part of the data virtualization, or is it a separate product?
No, it's part of DENODO. It's good to know that when you buy a license in DENODO, you will be able to access to all the different tools that we have here. Like, for instance, in the control center, we have the data catalog, which is the one that we saw before. It's included. It's a feature in DENODO, and it's included in the license. And also the design studio, which is more oriented to the developers, and also the diagnostic and monitoring tool, which is more oriented to the administrators, and also the scheduler, which is very similar to a ETL, where you can create different jobs and you can load information to a database or an Excel or TXT file or whatever. So everything is included in the license. I want to say thank you so much for your time, and hope this was very useful for you. And if you have anything to add here, you are free to do it.